This is what it sounded like in Denver. The Sixers were in action last night in the Mile High City without Joel Embiid. He hasn't played there in 1,901 days. And without his interior presence, Nikola Jokic, he had an opportunity to cook. He is our electric moment, brought to you by Hyundai. Jokic, this is the face of a man on a mission. The Nuggets up here in the first quarter. Jamal Murray kicks it out to Jokic. He makes it look so easy.
And when we're talking about comparing big men, look at the trajectories that these two teams have been on amongst their rivalry, even though they're not playing when he's in Denver. Just getting a championship and just being a dominant force, doing what he needs with his body to be able to be the most unguardable player in the NBA.
18 points in the first half for Jokic, and Russell Westbrook, rather, has been huge for Denver.
Look, you have to give that man his flowers. Ever since he entered the starting lineup, he has been that huge boost for all of them.
Nuggets continue to push their lead here.
Oh, see, he even got me there. Like, the no look to the corner, to the, like, this ain't fair.
Fourth straight triple-double, 27 points, 13 rebounds.
Straight face.
10 assists, and that's just light work. So on the 76ers side of all of this, they're just in a completely different spot than they were a year ago. Joel Embiid hung 70 points on Victor Wembanyama today, January 22nd last year. The Sixers, they were third in the East in that time. Now fast forward, they're 11th in the East, and Embiid has played in just 13 games all season long. And about a week ago, y'all remember this, we were sitting here and we were talking about how this is a pivotal point for the 76ers in their season. They haven't won a game since we have that conversation. And it's pretty rare that in January we start asking questions about should they consider just punting and trying again, thank you for playing next season. What conversations are the 76ers having about that right now? Is that even realistic, Shams?
Malika, ultimately, the team and Joel Embiid will have to have some conversations about health because that has been the key word. I said that word yesterday. That has played such a big factor with the 76ers season and just the unknowingness of whether he's going to play on any given night. And from my understanding, even today, from what I hear, Joel Embiid remains rehabbing, continuing to try to do everything he can to get back on the floor. But there have been frustrations, from my understanding, throughout the year of not having him there. That's what goes into having an MVP caliber player not be able to play, practices one day, but not able to sometimes play. And he knows his body better than anyone else. And so I think there is that level of respect where a player may not feel ready based on how he is feeling because he knows himself better than anyone else does. But the way this 76ers season is going, and they do have a protected pick this year.
Yeah, top
so
six
there is
protected.
some level of incentive there that we have to speak to as well.
Get that Eagles punter that you were talking about, punting, go punt. Punt, move on.
Really?
Yeah, I've watched the Sixers play twice in the last 3 weeks. Just doesn't look good. Embiid doesn't look good. He looks in a lot of turmoil. I guess this is a great draft. Cooper Flagg's there, Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper. What are they fighting for? To get in the play-in and maybe play the Celtics and maybe play Cleveland or New York?
So are you telling
Punt.
Philly to just literally focus on football and focus on your team that's doing some great things right now in the playoffs? Is that what you're saying? And just ignore basketball? And the crazy thing is, it might be
Cooper
that
Flagg
time.
would look good in that uniform, though.
He would look great. And then that would look like, oh, you guys were masterminds in this process. But still, that's a big if. They're currently 15-27, 2-8 in their last 10 games. When I think about the circumstance with Joel Embiid, it's so hard. I've dealt with 2 major injuries.
And you were the best player on a team with expectations.
When I was in Connecticut.
Yep.
And right knee microfracture, left Achilles. I had to come back from them. But there was a clear plan for me being available or not so that my teammates knew what to expect and how to prepare. I think sometimes being in flux as much. What you talking about? I mean, no, but I still got all-stars, bro.
She came back after that.
Yeah, but that's my whole point here is just saying that when you have an injury, you have to have a clear plan. And it's obvious that their plan went out the window when they had multiple injuries, multiple of their stars out for different times to start the year. So you never built the chemistry, and you still can't really put them all together. So if you're looking towards the future, you might want to give Joel Embiid an opportunity to say, hey, we are trying to clear your health as best as we can with the time that we have instead of patching things up.
But, Chiney, what if you're able to get these three guys out on the floor for the final month of the season and somehow get into the play-in? Because that's what, people in that Sixers organization, just if you can sneak in, you potentially have the talent.
It's an if that may be worth examining, but what's Perk saying? If ifs were fifths, we'd all be drunk. And that's where they're starting to teeter on the edge. They're starting to teeter on the edge of that top six protected. And if they have a greater chance of that getting that pick than they do of making the playoffs at all, some really serious conversations are going to happen pretty soon. The Heat, it was turned down by the Blazers last night. Jimmy Butler, let's just check in on his shoe colorway because it's all about subliminal messages here. Oh, yeah, it's the Suns colors, maybe. The Heat came in as 8.5-point favorites, but lost 116-107. Miami has now lost 4 of their last 5 games, and they've fallen to 500 on the season. In the loss, Jimmy Butler, he finished with 13 points, 4 of 9 shooting. And we know that Jimmy is only putting in 11 points per game since the end of his suspension, but it's a little bit deeper than the lack of scoring. According to Second Spectrum, Butler has spent much of his time passing on Tuesday night. 76% of his touches ended with a pass. Just 14% led to him taking a shot. And we're used to seeing him be the guy that's going to the cup here. In the Heat, they were struggling a little last night.
Some of that coffee.
Right. Some of the big face, exactly. While the Heat were struggling, though, Marc, there was a maybe seemingly insignificant move that was made, but really this could be maybe the first rumble before the tectonic plates began to shift. Shams, what happened with the Phoenix Suns yesterday?
The Phoenix Suns have been atop Jimmy Butler's trade preparations list. And preparations, is that even a word?
Preferential, yep.
They have gone out and traded their 2031 first-round pick for 3 future first-round picks with the Utah Jazz. And what this does is this unlocks the next 6 years of draft picks for the Phoenix Suns and triples their first-round draft assets that they can use in a trade. So instead of having 1 first-round pick to use, they now have 3, and this gives them the ability to go out and potentially, if you're going to go get Jimmy Butler, it's going to be a 3, 4, 5 team trade from my understanding.
Okay.
And these assets now allow you to filter it within multiple teams, not just one team. So if you have to satisfy a 3rd team, a 4th team, as well as the Miami Heat for Jimmy Butler, that's what this positions them to do. But this is really a battle of leverage for both sides. Phoenix obviously wants Jimmy Butler, but Miami, you have to get the best deal for your franchise. But as every game goes along, this is clearly something. There's an issue there in Miami, some sort of distraction. Tyler Hero the other week called it chaos. They need to figure out what they're doing here with Jimmy Butler.
So if the Suns remain atop the preferences list for Jimmy Butler, Bradley Beal almost certainly, right, would still have to be moved. And in order for that to happen, he would have to waive his no-trade clause, right? I'm getting all that right so far.
100%. That's the salary that you would need.
Right.
Devin Booker, Kevin Durant not going anywhere in a Jimmy Butler trade.
Okay, so if that's the salary they need, Marc Spears, you've covered Bradley Beal incredibly closely over the last couple of years. Do you think that he would be willing to waive that?
Very interesting question. Last year, I did a diary with Bradley Beal, and I'm going to read this quote. He said last season he was very close to going to Milwaukee. They were in the running as well. So that's interesting to me because that means that he was seriously considering going to the Bucks. He said he didn't like some of the other moves that they ended up doing, which caused him not to go to Milwaukee. But the fact that he was interested in playing with Giannis, hey, if there's going to be a place that he could maybe shake his no-trade clause, obviously Milwaukee was a place before, so I think that could be an interesting move that makes sense.
This is turning into a big game of dominoes.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting. One piece moves in another piece, and that makes it a little bit more complex. When I was thinking about Jimmy Butler, he's like, I'm going to do my job, but I'm not going to do the most. And in that circumstance, that's how I feel like
Richard.
Pretty much like Richard every freaking day. And he'll be here later on. We love Richard, kind of. But when I think about this potentially happening in Phoenix, Jimmy Butler becoming a Phoenix Sun, if this were to be able to happen, I think he helps them with the toughness factor.
Okay.
This is a team that's 24th in defense. This is a team that's 8-13 on the road. You need a guy that really helps everyone get up for big games. And I think they've thought that they maybe could bring that out of other people. But one thing I know about KD and Devin Booker, those guys are hoopers. Like, no matter what the temperature is, they're calm. You need someone that will be a little bit like igniting that storm to help them get those wins that they really need.
Yep.
And one thing about Jimmy Butler, especially when it comes to clutch time, he has this ability. Our researcher, J.J., made a great point. Hyper-focus.
Yeah.
And I think that's the type of mentality you have to have when you're at this place in the standings, low in the standings, trying to climb your way up.
We know that Matt Ishbia is not afraid to make these big swings, but right now the Suns are a 500 team. They're 10th in the West, and the question they have to ask themselves is bringing in a Jimmy Butler make them a title contender? Because that is the bar for this team.